welcome back to our Speaking Candidly conversational series where my conversational buddy Elijah Whitehouse and I will discuss and all rant about varying topics from human nature to dating to entrepreneurship and philosophies. So today we will discuss the ever so current topic of social media, something that has become such an integral part of most people's lives that it would be unfathomable not to at least discuss it. All right, so social media. How do you think social media has shaped our society today?
Oh, there's a myriad of ways. There's it's connected people from across the world, which is cool. But on that same token, it's connected people across the world. So, um, on one hand, you can organize like fundraising efforts, or on the other hand, you could lead a outrage mob to get someone canceled, or to remove them from their job, or, because of public pressure and stuff like that. The world seems a bit smaller now, ever since social media blew up, but at the same time, you could have people who haven't seen each other in years connect. So there's positives and negatives to social media.
Right. Well, I think it's hard to imagine a life without social media, just in general, like given today's society's dependence on it and how it's
Yeah.
almost like a second brain or second place to store information, And I think before social media, which I believe I do recall a time where there was no Facebook, there was no Twitter and all that stuff.
Yep.
I would say life was a little bit more simpler.
Having grown up in life before the internet, I would say you and I are part of the generation that knew what life was like before all that, before the internet. Life was simpler. I think the internet just revealed what it always was, and just did it on a broader scale. And some people took to it like white on rice, and others just they said, no, this isn't for me, so I'm not going to take part in it. That is an abnormality today, to not take part in social media,
Right.
which I find to be interesting.
Right. Yeah, I think back then is more. It was considered social media was considered the abnormality. Back in the day. Um. Yeah, I really think that it's actually made society more. It's brought everyone closer, but at the same time, it's brought people apart in the sense that there's so much
Hmm.
um, distance one can create with social media in terms of thinking that you could like use information against or for something. So which brings us to the next interesting question about social media. Basically, how do you think social media has evolved since its advent? And to define advent, I would say, like, to me, the most recognizable event or major business that made social media the social media it is today was Facebook. And I believe that was what started the whole train of social media growth and utility now, that almost is almost ubiquitous throughout the entire world. So what do you think about that?
I think Facebook is what blew it up.
Right.
MySpace started it, right? And MySpace it was all the rage back in high school. When I was in high school, it's like, oh, did you have a MySpace? Did you have a MySpace? And it was cool because you had your top 8, and you had your profile, and you had your pictures, and you could modify it. People coming up with all these unique MySpace profiles and everything, which was cool. And that kind of like you had LiveJournal, or all these journals, whatever, websites. But then it wasn't until Facebook came around, and originally it was for college students, I believe, and then Twitter was for celebrities. I don't know when Twitter started, but Twitter was originally just for celebrities. But then they both kind of went into the direction of public, and now they're integrated with society. So I think absolutely, if it wasn't for Facebook taking off as it did, I don't think we would have the social media landscape that we have today.
Right. I think Facebook defined this, they set the standard for what social media is. Because back then it was just seen as a casual thing, oh, you could just put your profile, meet people, date random profile pics and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But Facebook really set the standard for it being a means of connecting. So it's like a more personal form of email, with a face. And now I believe it's evolved from that Facebook thing to all the way to videos, images, live feeds, stuff like that. So it's becoming more real time. When back in the day when it just started, it was probably just like it could be posted anywhere, anytime, and you don't even know whether it's done in real time or not. You know what I mean? So
Yeah. With the social media stuff came like streaming sites, and with like Justin.tv becoming Twitch, and Twitch blowing up. Streaming also is a evolution of social media because that's
right.
real-time interaction.
And that kind of leads to the interesting segue or interesting point of real-time streaming becoming virtual reality, augmented reality, because as we know, Facebook acquired Oculus, the VR startup or company back then. So it
Yes.
seems like social media is growing from like a still image to, again, video streaming, and then in eventually perhaps even 3D environment surrounding the person. So that's kind of interesting to project into the future that could be a means of social media. And again, the standard is yet again set potentially by Facebook. Well, the future's so far undefined, but it seems like Facebook is sort of paving that path towards a more three-dimensional mixed reality form of social media. Diving deeper into the psychology behind social media and in our society somewhat like depends on it, as we mentioned. For me, I believe, like, going deeper into social media, that it is a form of self-expression and yet a second reality. So in a way, it's like social media can be real and can be faked at the same time. As we know, there's fake profiles, fake news, fake information. You can like, just because somebody create an account doesn't mean that they could be real with it, if you know what I mean. So you can,
Yes.
in a way, you can create like a version of yourself, either usually an ideal version of yourself. Like, for example, on Instagram, people put their best pictures, but that doesn't mean that's what they are currently now. So I would see, like, if we talk about the psychology behind social media, is a form of escapism, as well as in some contexts a form of self-loathing. Like,
Yeah.
people go there, compare themselves to other people, stuff like that. So what do you think?
Um, the societal pressures of becoming this idealized version of yourself has always been around, right? You have the magazines, and you have all those like fitness magazines, or just images of men and women who sometimes they don't even exist. They're just a composite of other people put together. I read that somewhere before. Um, and you have like all these people saying, "Oh, well, you got to be this, you got to be that." That is magnified with social media. Um, I remember reading an article of this high school girl. She wanted to explore the effects of uh, social media and bullying. So what she did was she posted a picture of herself in a bikini. I think when she was like a freshman or something. And this was for like a senior project or something like that. And she just posted it, and all the friends that she had on Facebook, or a lot of people that could comment on it, was saying, "Oh, you should kill yourself, this, that, and the other." And she goes, "Hey, cool, thanks. This is evidence for my paper. All y'all are about to get get narked on. So awesome,
Right. So
And so,
let's
yeah,
actually talk more about the psychology behind that.
yes,
Yeah. So we touched on the point about, people putting out their ideal selves. I think in some sense, because the world is more connected, they feel like they have to impress people. Psychologically
yeah,
speaking, as human beings, we always like to put our first, best impression and best foot forward. So even if you can't see those people, or even if they technically people don't care, right? But we don't know that. Most humans don't. So they believe that, oh, I should put my best self out there because, what if somebody sees me looking like this? So in talking about the ideal self, there are profiles or accounts that put out fake. I mean, it's very easy to put out fake information. For example, let's say I could be here in Singapore and I could say, oh, I'm in, think of a country, I'm in China, and just put tweet, and it's funny because most people's tendency is to just believe it. They don't question it because they feel like social media is real time, and it is becoming real time, literally, and also like, with the VR stuff, it's hard to fake that. But people forget that social media can be curated, they can be crafted, they can be used as manipulative tools, and at the same time, those tweets can be scheduled. So stuff can be scheduled and planned. It's not necessarily in real time.
That just builds upon what I was saying earlier. Now with social media and all the ability to craft this image of yourself and putting it out there, you can say, this is what I look like, and you want to impress people, but at the same time, it keep like self-loathing. It's like, why don't I actually look like this? And that can lead to like online bullying, which is a thing, and people are like, well, why don't you just step away from the internet? It's really not that simple,
Well, yeah, it isn't, but it is at the same time. It's interesting because we can talk about that too. Like there are a lot of cases where people are being picked on or like being harassed or blackmailed online with images of whatever they put up. But if you think about it, I mean, yeah, sure, it's a reputational damage if they really know who you are as well as where you live and stuff like that. But if it's just a psychological abuse, also psychological trauma, like if you just turn it off and disconnect from the world, if people can even do that nowadays, it really does solve the problem. Because firstly, you don't even really know this person, unless you really do, but again, you don't really know. And secondly, it's all, I wouldn't say imagined because that's a little bit too harsh, but it's still sort of a distant issue compared to confronting someone in person. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If you're an adult, then yes, you can just walk away, or you can mute, or just block the person, etc.
Most adults still have problems doing that.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so let's move on to when people use social media to compare. And it's interesting because, again, back in the day when there wasn't such tools, ignorance is literally bliss. The only way you can compare is if you walk down the street and you see someone and then you think about it. But nowadays, with all the social media being curated and again crafted to be the perfect image, it's so easy for people who firstly have a form of self-loathing or who are inclined to negative thoughts. It's so easy for them to look and compare themselves, which again doesn't really help them. So to me, I would think like, yes, ignorance is bliss, and that's also partly the reason why I usually don't like social. I'm like, personally, for me, I have to use social media because it's important for my business. But if not, I would not have one. Not even none. So yeah.
I think that's a fair assessment. Like, as I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of people who don't want to use it, who don't really care to use it. People who are entrepreneurs or own businesses, they figured out a way to properly use it for their business and how to promote their business and stuff like that. And then you have like crowdfunding, charity, like GoFundMe, Kickstarter, stuff like that.
Right. Okay, so I guess any ending thoughts or notes on social media in general, as well as the psychology behind it?
People can get addicted to it.
Oh, yeah,
and that's another thing that we need to be wary of. It's social media, I'm not gonna say objectively it's a good or a bad thing. Like, it's a thing there, and how we use it is important, and how we moderate it is important.
It's interesting that you bring that up because that is also a key component of social media, which is validation and approval, which again, we didn't talk about that too. But yeah, psychologically for that, well, yeah, it is true. Yeah, social media is a tool, is neutral. It depends on how you use it, as you mentioned it. But at the same time, if you're not careful, social media uses you. So instead of you controlling it, social media controls you. So I've seen a few Dr. Phil episodes where there are a few like supposedly influencers on Instagram who are so tune into their audience, that everything they do is for them. They're not really, they lose themselves in the social media validation because they feel like the more they make their followers happy, like they get more followers, whatever, and all that stuff. But then they forget why their why. So they got sucked into the portal of, constant approval from fans and followers, which again is dangerous, especially for people with low self-esteem. So, yeah, cool. All right. So that pretty much concludes our conversation for today. If you enjoyed this discussion or learned something new from us both, please go ahead and like this video as well as subscribe for more. Also, feel free to join in the conversation as well by sharing your thoughts in the comments. Now then, this is Vicki Lau and
Elijah Whitehouse
signing off.